Welcome, everyone. My name is Peter Coyote, and I'm with my friend and teacher, Lou Richmond, author of Every Breath, New Chances, How to Age with Honor and Dignity. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased to be discussing this. Full disclosure, Lou has been my teacher for many, many years and ordained me as a priest and transmitted me, which means turning me loose independently on the world. So I can claim some intimacy with his mind. And I need to tell you how surprising this book was. There was so much new information and inventive approaches to the problem of aging that I, who considered myself an expert in Lou Richmond, was flabbergasted. So please ride with us and meet Lou Richmond. Lou, let me start with an easy axis, a seesaw. There are two kind of poles that you deal with in this book related to the subject of aging. One is strength and power, and the other is vulnerability and weakness. You want to talk us through that geography a little bit?
Well, thank you, Peter. This book is, as the subtitle implies, a guide for men. It's directed to men, although I'm hoping that women will read it and buy it. There's a lot in there for them too. I wrote the book because my previous book on aging, which is called Aging as a Spiritual Practice, seemed to be read mostly by women. And men bought it, but they gave it to their moms, kind of thing. And being a man myself and being aging myself and having a lot of male friends, I thought, well, we need a book that's really for us, that addresses our particular issues about growing older. And the essence of aging is loss. We're losing our youth. We're losing our strength. We're losing our virility. We're losing a lot of things that men in particular see as essential to their identity as men, particularly men of our generation who grew up in the 50s, let's say. And in those days, it was not that long after World War II, our dads had come home from the wars. There was what's called a boy code, or what I call the masculine stereotype. Be strong, be powerful, don't show weakness. Boys don't cry. I was told many times by my father, who was a war veteran, boys don't cry. Are you a whiner or a winner? All those kinds of things. And that's deep in our psyches as American men of that generation. And we're now in our 60s, 70s, 80s, and we're confronting the fact that we're losing that sense, that illusion perhaps, of strength, of power. And we are, maybe not for the first time, but certainly more continuously now, have a sense of being vulnerable. We've had illnesses, close friends have died, and for the first time, we're confronting a sense of vulnerability that we can't escape from. We can't be tough in front of. Being a tough guy is not going to get you through aging as a man. So, I talk a lot about that in the book, that a lot of the things that make us who we are as men may have worked when we're younger. I don't know. But they're going to not work increasingly now. My watchword, my summary really of the message of the whole book is vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability is actually strength. learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to accept tears, accept grief, accept weakness is strength, in the same way that a willow tree is strong because it can bend and not break. So that's really a big part of what the book is about, I think.
Well, as a whining winner who's less than a year away from 80, I learned a lot from this book.
Oh, good.
I have to say that other than the question of virility, there's nothing in this book that I think would not be useful to women. I mean, women face earlier than men the loss of their kind of sexual identity or the loss of their beauty. Or, you know, I can still remember the first time I walked into a room after having been a movie actor for a long time and no one noticed. And I talked about it for a minute with a girlfriend who said, yeah, well, I hit that 20 years ago. So
Right.
I'd like to ask you, it's funny because you came up with the image of a willow tree, which is exactly what came to my mind. So flexibility, softness. Could you give me some more details? For instance, we're attached to this body. This is maybe the first thing we became attached to. And it's very difficult not to mourn its loss and not to mourn the characteristics of its loss. And so in what way does being open to the feelings of loss and terror and regret increase your strength, increase your ability to be present as you age?
Well, men's attitude toward our bodies is closely related to athleticism, to physical prowess. I can't tell you how many stories and how many men I know personally who have hurt themselves, sometimes very seriously, by trying to do something physical, like take a 50-mile bike ride or boogie board with your teenage son on the beach and then break your ankle, thinking that somehow we still have the body of a 25-year-old man, and we don't. I had a good friend who went head over heels on a bike, fractured his skull, was unconscious for 2 weeks. So this delusion of ours can be very serious. Men don't have periods. Men don't have menopause. Men don't go through childbirth. We can maintain the illusion that we're young physically for quite a long time and think that we're still strong. You know, you didn't mention when you talked about my being your teacher and so forth that we both come from the Buddhist tradition. I have been and am a Buddhist author and teacher. My worldview is steeped in the Buddhist approach to life.
How did I overlook that?
Pardon?
How did I overlook that?
Well, maybe because it's for you and me, it's too obvious. But the Buddhist approach is very much, as it relates to the body, is to not identify our core being with our body. If we're going to identify it with anything, we identify it with our breath. Ergo the title, Every Breath, New Chances. The breath is life. And the breath, in a very real sense, doesn't participate in the loss of physical prowess. The breath doesn't really age in the same way. From the time we took our first breath coming out of the womb, every breath has been pretty much the same. And the breath also, you know, the word spirit comes from the Latin word spiritus, which means breath. So from ancient times, spiritual teachers, and there's the word spiritual, which means related to the breath, realized that to negotiate the fullness of life from birth to death, we should not focus on how we look, how we appear to others, beauty, talent. There's a great line from one of my favorite movies, Pulp Fiction, where one of the characters says, you got talent, but the hard fact is talent don't last. The body doesn't last. Beauty doesn't last. All the things that we cherish about ourselves in that way are destined to be lost, but not the breath. To our very last moment, we breathe and are alive. So I think one of the messages of this book for men is shift what you identify with. Don't identify with strength, with power, with athleticism, with the body, with being tough, with being strong. Identify with something we might call, and I call in the book, our core identity or core being, which is outside of all of that.
Well, that's our practice, isn't it? Following our
Yes.
breath. Let me read a quote here because it leads me into the next question. Aging is a two-faced coin. On one side is loss of virility, strength, power, possibility, opportunity, and health. On the other side is transformation and growth. This transformation is not an intellectual concept. It is not something that can be grasped merely through reading or thinking. The aging journey is emotional. It happens in the realm of feeling.
Yes,
I'd
feeling.
like you to unpack that.
Well, there's an infinite amount of material and books and websites and all that about, you might say, the intellectual aspects of aging. Better diet, taking your doctor's instruction, taking your medicine, exercise, lifting weights, going to the gym, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would call that an intellectual approach to aging in the sense that it's all about, really, it's about avoiding aging or keeping it at bay. But the actual real drama of growing older is emotional. It's in the realm of deep feeling. And it's also, to use a word that is really core for the book, it's in the realm of intuition. I talk a lot about intuition. And in fact, I've created a whole contemplative practice I call deep mind reflections. There's one at the end of every chapter to awaken the emotional and the intuitive faculties, which current research on intuition indicates that there's no gender difference. Men are as intuitive as women. But intuition is something you need to pay attention to. It's always going on. Intuition is kind of like our background brain. It's always watching. Originally, intuition, I think, was created in our minds to deal with threats. And it's a very old part of the brain. It's not really about thinking. It's about feeling your way through a pitch black room. How do you do that? Aging is kind of like a pitch black room for us, and we can't think our way through. We have to awaken another faculty. And the emotions around aging are at first not happy ones: sadness, grief, depression, not knowing what to do. One of my women interviewees, a woman, said, you know, when men retire, they have a tendency to just shuffle around the house in their bathrobe, lost. And then she said, we women don't buckle quite that easily, but it's sad to see. And yes, that is the initial approach to feelings about aging. But as you plumb those depths more positive and more transformative feelings and intuitions can occur. And that's what I've designed the book to help men and women come to.
So I want to pursue this question of intuition, but I also realized that I said something that was kind of misleading when I was describing the utility of the book to women. It's not that it's societal perceptions of women that change as they age, not that the women themselves become less valuable. I hope I didn't imply that or mean that.
I think they know that.
It's also another problem of men aging, which is, when you see a guy out on a date with a girl young enough to be his daughter, he's walking into the rooms with his insecurity. He's signaling to other men his virility, his desirability, his what have you. So I just wanted to clarify that point. But let me read you this quote from you. The emerging field of intuition research has also identified 3 characteristics of intuition. It is quick, 3 times faster than ordinary thinking. It operates outside of conscious awareness, and it needs little information from the outside world to make its decisions. Intuition seems to reside in a much older part of the brain. It's actually a broader spectrum than intelligence, isn't it?
Well, yes, and part of why I emphasize it is that intuition is the part of our psyche that knows about our aging the best. I like to say that intuition is always aware of how old we are. It's watching the clock. It's tracking every breath. It knows us so well, like a loving grandfather or an old grandmother taking care of us. Our intuition is our most valuable resource when it comes to aging. And so that's why I emphasize awakening intuition. Intuition is like the willow branch. It bends, it's flexible. It moves with the ups and downs of the months and the years. Intuition is the tracker of aging. And if we can tune into it, we can age much more authentically and much more wisely.
When you first introduced this subject to me, it was a couple of years ago. And when you first explained it, you said that intuition was actually a combination of memory, intelligence, and emotion. And because of it was all those 3 quadrants, it covered a huge area of the brain. It pulled in inputs and from all over the mind. Did I get that right?
Well, mostly. I mean, we have 3 different terrains in the psyche. We have intellect, we have emotion, and we have intuition. Intuition is the oldest, it's the most powerful, and it's the broadest. And its language is not typically words, it's images. Mm-hmm. So my deep mind reflection practices encourage the reader to move into their psyche kind of like a waking dream and come up with images, because those images are guides. They're like teachers inside of our mind that can tell us what to do and where to go. At some point, if you like, I can briefly give an example of a deep mind reflection. I have many of them, but I can do one that is quite general and explain how it works. Maybe I should do that now.
Well, I'm hoping you're going to do that. But let me just broaden the framework a little for people who may not be Buddhist or may not be so familiar with reflections. Here's another quote. And this strikes me as directly from Buddhist practice. Every breath, new chances means that no situation is fixed and that every situation can change, sometimes for the worse, but often for the better. Life is full of surprises. This is a core Buddhist principle and also a psychological one. A psychiatrist friend once told me that the advice he gives to patients who feel stuck is, there's always something you can do. This is similar to what my Buddhist teacher said. The challenge is discovering what that something is.
Yes. And intuition can lead you there. Intuition is the most direct route. When we think of change, particularly as we're older, we concentrate on negative change. I used to be able to stay up late. Now I can't. I have to take a nap every day. I'm speaking about myself. Why do I have to do that? It's a waste of time, but I get tired after lunch. I don't like that change. I wish it's like an old joke from the Seinfeld show. One of the characters comes up with a cartoon where there's a little pig at the Macy's suggestion counter, Macy's complaint counter. And the little pig is looking up and says, I wish I was taller.
I've seen that cartoon.
I wish I was taller. I wish I was younger. I wish I wasn't like this. I wish my hair wasn't white when I look in the mirror. I wish I wasn't scared when I go to the doctor to have tests. But intuition knows the other side, which is every moment is also an opportunity for something new. And we forget that as older adults, we have life wisdom. We have something that no younger person has and has never had, which is knowing what it's like to have lived 50, 60, 70 years. You know stuff. And that stuff is a great treasure. It's held in the preconscious mind, in intuition, and every situation, like my psychiatrist friend says, has opportunities. He said that in relation to dealing with severely depressed people who often say, Doc, there's nothing I can do. This is it. My life is over. I might as well pack it in. And then he says, no, there's always something you can do. Every breath, new chances. This is my message of the whole book. Really, is there are always new chances, and in some sense, there are chances that only appear to us as older people. Younger people don't get those chances. In particular, the chance to understand the deepest or widest meaning of a human life. Meaning is one of the most important qualities that every human being must have. And without meaning, we can't survive. And what I'm hoping to provide with this book is a roadmap toward a new purchase on meaning as we age.
So I think this might be a good time to give us the architecture on this deep mind reflections, which is
right.
The aspect of the book I found extremely useful and extremely original. Perhaps I don't know how long they want us to continue, but if you were to give us the architecture and explanation, then you might actually lead us through one. And
well, I'll try to make it quick. Basically, the deep mind reflection is not exactly a meditation. I didn't feel that was quite the ticket for this kind of book, particularly for men. It's a combination of maybe a guided daydream, what Jungian psychology calls creative imagination, which is a little bit like free association. And it's also a little bit like a Zen koan, which you and I are familiar with. The Zen tradition has spiritual questions called koans that you pose to yourself and you follow and see where they lead. So here's an example, the first one that I do. The two main elements that you start with are what I call a key word and a key image. The key word is really a way to get to the key image. The image is really what awakens your inner wisdom. So in this example, the key word is simply aging. Aging. Now, for the intellect, aging has a definition. But for intuition, the word aging is a gate. It's like knocking at a door. And so you sit quietly with your eyes closed or open, and you simply repeat the keyword aging silently to yourself or under your breath until it moves, until it no longer has a meaning intellectually, but it's more like a sound. Aging. Aging. And then allow yourself to connect that sound, that gate word, to an image, and it's your image. I don't provide one. Everyone provides their own, although in each one I do give examples of how these reflections go for me. So when I did this reflection, after I repeated the word aging and gave myself permission to look for an image, the image was this, my white hair that I see every morning in the mirror. That's the image that came up. It's a little bit of not a happy image in the sense that I'd rather not have white hair. I used to have gray hair, and I would tell my person that cut my hair, you know, I have gray hair, and he'd say, "Lou, it's white." And so that image is, again, a kind of gate. And so then you move to the next stage of the exercise where you allow both the word and the image to find its way to change. And when I did this exercise, aging, and at some point, my intuition came up with the word ancient. Aging and ancient. Ancient is a little similar. It sounds similar, but it's quite a different feeling. Ancient. And then I thought of the biblical phrase, Ancient of Days. A beautiful phrase in the King James Bible. It's actually an epithet of God, who's the Ancient of Days. And then my mind went to the beautiful etching of William Blake of the man with the long, long white beard, the Ancient of Days. But, you know, Ancient of Days can also just mean any of us. We've lived a lot of days. And I realized, oh, I'm an Ancient of Days.
So is it fair to say that you could describe this process in a certain way as not only changing your self-image to something that's more appropriate to fact, but also to something that's more emotionally sustaining and supportive?
Well, yes, Ancient of Days is very beautiful and dignified. I like being an Ancient of Days.
Yeah.
But the process of reflection kept moving in my imagination, and the word changed again to the word patient. Ancient, patient, patient.
There's a double meaning.
It has a double meaning. It means to be patient, to not to be anxious and to wait for things. But also, I've had some very, very serious illnesses in my life, illnesses that nearly killed me. And I've been a patient in a hospital, in rehab, in bed for weeks and months. And that kind of patient. And also, right now, like all of us, I'm scared to get COVID and be a patient in a hospital. We're all frightened of that. Talk about vulnerability. We all feel very vulnerable. But why that image of being a patient, which is very traumatic for me, was also positive, is look at me now. I recovered.
Mm-hmm.
I'm healthy again. I had a new chance. All the doctors thought I would die. I didn't. All the doctors thought I would be crippled or I had a brain infection. They thought I would lose my mental capacities. I didn't. I got through that. And what that means is I got through that. I can get through other things. So this whole process of deep mind reflection is a way, and you'll have your own process with each of these reflections. I have a reflection on the word retirement. Retirement. I have a reflection on the word vulnerability, fear, being a man. That's a good one.
And is the dynamic always the same? You play with the word until you get an image,
and then you let the image and the word move through you until it takes you somewhere. And trust that your deep mind, which is my word for intuition, is basically like a kindly grandfather. It's always there to help you. Your intuition is not your enemy, it's your friend. And so, yes, it's a way, each one of these is a way to turn what could be initially a negative thing like fear or I don't feel like a man anymore type of thing to something that is more inspiring. Remember, the word inspiring literally means to breathe in. So it's taking you to the state of a new breath, a new chance. And there is a connection, I can't quite explain it, between the breath and paying attention to the breath, which is a core Buddhist practice, and intuition. The breath is kind of like the soul of intuition in the body. It's the body's expression of intuition. That's the best I can put it. And so I developed this practice of deep mind reflection out of my own experience and my own need. What's the method based on my long experience of meditation practice, of Buddhist teaching, of Buddhist doctrine, of the words of wisdom my teachers told me? What's the best tool to offer to readers, to other people, to help them take this next step of life? And remember, until very recently, we didn't have this extra 20 or 30 years we have now. Life expectancy in 1900 was 48. In 1932, when Social Security was passed, life expectancy was 65. That's why they made that the Social Security age. They didn't think people would outlive it. Now, Peter, you're still hale and hearty, nearly 80. I'm 73. A lot of people live into their 90s, what are they going to do with all this extra time? My answer is develop yourself. Become a source of wisdom for yourself and a resource for other people.
So let me ask you something to talk a little more deeply about the deep mind reflection on core identity.
Well, core identity means who you are outside of conventional understanding of identity. My name is Louis Richmond. It's what's on my license, driver's license. It's what's on my birth certificate. But is it who I really am? No, I could change my name. Is this body, which now needs a nap every day, really me? Well, is the man who lay flat on his back, unable to move in a rehab hospital, is that really me? Who is really me? And who is the real person who resides in the deepest recesses of our body and mind? It's actually not an individual separate from everything else. It is one, to use the phrase that's become a joke, one with everything, you know. We don't exist as individuals, really. We exist in a network, infinite network of all life. Even stones and sand are a part of who we are. And the natural course of a life as we age is that aging gives us, as these temporary icons of identity fall away, our youth, our beauty, and so forth, we have the opportunity to enter into, through the what Buddhism calls the wisdom gate, to who we really are. And what the ultimate meaning of a human life is, not our job or our career. That's another thing that for men is very, very key at a certain stage of life. I'm a vice president of such and such a company. I'm a writer. I'm this, I'm that. Not really. Temporarily, you're doing that, but when that ends, then who are you? You don't want to be shuffling around in a bathrobe at home, like my woman friend said. You want to be able to stand tall in who you really are, and that's the key to this book.
So as the book progresses, you do a kind of breakdown of old age, the starting to age 50s.
Yes, the stages of aging.
Yes, the stages of the declining energy 60s. I remembered that one. And then I got to the 70s where I'm about to leave, and its title is Impermanence and Chaos. Talk to me a little bit about that. Maybe I've missed something.
Well, impermanence is a word you see a lot in Buddhist writing. It's supposed to be a core tenet of Buddhism. Nothing lasts. I've come to dislike the term. It's something that scholars came up with. That's not the feeling of impermanence. The feeling of impermanence is chaos. Like, what the heck is happening? Oh my gosh. I thought my life was going this way and now it's going that way. You know, I spent a lot of time in the book talking about what was going on with me while I was writing the book, which was that I was trying to sell one house, downsize into a smaller house, living in a hotel. We didn't have a home. We didn't know what the future would bring. And I realized, oh, this is chaos. I
Right.
think a lot of people in their 70s do think about, making major life changes. Maybe they have to. Sometimes it's when you're younger and you do it with your parents, having to move them into take away their car keys or move. Sometimes you get a chronic illness and your life becomes chaos. Chaos is much more of a feeling word, and I think it reflects the confusion that sets in at certain critical crisis times when we age. And that's when we really need intuition to help us, because chaos is like being in a pitch black room. You don't know what to do or where to go. So that's really what I meant is there comes a time in your aging process where things really do seem to be falling apart, and you have to find new ways to be strong.
Well, I was very happy to see that the next decade, the 80s, is called a time for gratitude.
Well, if you get there, I mean, I have friends who are in their 80s, and a lot of them say, oh my gosh, never thought I'd make it, but I'm looking back now and I'm thinking, hey, I had a good life. I had a good life. I don't have any regrets. I've got a great family. I'm living on borrowed time. I'm living on bonus points, to use a phrase from,
Marketing.
pinball machines and marketing. I'm on bonus points. I feel good, whatever happens. I use my old university teacher, Eric Erickson, who developed the 8 stages of a human life. And the last stage he calls, I've translated as deep acceptance. And that's really the goal, and really the point of the book is to move you to the stage of deeply accepting everything that has happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, and come to a place where, it's okay. If I go tomorrow, hey, I had a good life.
So that seems like our little conversation has made a lovely arc. Why don't you lead us in a short meditation, a short deep mind reflection, and give us the feeling about it? And
Well, this is a good place to wind up. And rather than meditation per se, I do have my final deep mind reflection in the last couple of pages of the book is on the keyword home. It's very similar to core identity. Where is our true home? I came up with this when I was living in a motel room without a home, really. And I had to think, well, where's my home? Where am I really? So let me just read, a bit from the last couple of pages of the book as the book ends, so this not very good conversation can end. I say a home is not just a house. It is, in a psychic and emotional sense, who we really are and the place within which we really live. The inner home is not any particular age. I'm not sure it ages at all. Like the breath, I'm not sure it ages at all. Maybe the breath is our home. Wherever we go, whatever we do, we are always home deep inside, though we may not always recognize it or acknowledge it. So in this deep mind reflection, I ask people to, in a sense, meditate on the word home. I say, like the ringing of a bell, home, home, and see where that takes you. Beyond the physical home you may be sitting in when you're doing the meditation, to something deeper. And then I say, I also think that fully embracing our aging in all its aspects, its positives and negatives, with all the contradictory emotions that flourish within it, is still another kind of home. We could also call that embrace coming home. Aging is coming home to who you really are and who you used to be or who you imagine you still are. You know, in the Christian tradition, particularly, they use the phrase going home as a metaphor for the end of life, going home to the source of creation. And the ringing of the bell can take you there. It's the sound of home. And I say, tune into the home that lives within your deep mind, that mind that is itself a kind of home, the place where all your memories, all your successes and failures, your nostalgia and regret live and breathe. And I end the book by saying, aging is what life does. And whatever happens tomorrow, next month, or next year, today we are all home together. As your reflection on home comes to an end and dissipates into thin air, my wish for you is to continue aging well and to continue to grow and prosper into the time and the place of your true, authentic home.
It's very beautiful.
Note, I end the book.
It's very beautiful. And I think on that note, I'm going to remind viewers, this is the book, Every Breath, New Chances, How to Age with Honor and Dignity, and verify one biased reader's opinion that it's very useful and it's very beautiful. Lou, thanks for this half hour, and I'll see you soon again.
Okay. Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.